Lucy?
Creator.
That's one.
Loving.
Loving.
Scary.
Scary. Okay. Now, Joe,
Yeah, the Joe.
practice it.
Holy.
Holy,
Righteous.
righteous,
Fine.
faithful. Really? Let's be a little more honest.
I'm locking in.
Was that like 모태 대답? Like,
That's like textbook.
Call a friend.
Yeah. The thing about this question is to why you okay.
She feels
Yeah. The thing about this question is to, just casually open up what we think about God. Try not to get too serious about this. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Number one. Okay. Now, when you share this icebreaker, 3 questions, just accept their ideas, even if like some people would say, selfish. I don't know, any negative idea, just accept it.
What if they say like Jesus?
나 꼼짝이야.
Yeah, I mean that's fine, Or some might say woman,
What?
Ariana Grande.
Oh my gosh, that's
Some people might, but don't show this face, okay? If anyone said woman and you're like what, then it's ruined,
the
okay?
my group always say that. I have my group isn't like that.
Let's see, God is yeah. Anyways, just casually, especially Christine with a newcomer,
Yeah, Christine.
you gotta expect any kind of
Poker face.
answers, yeah.
그만큼 준비가 잘 되셔야 돼요.
And somebody can actually give you an answer that's intentionally offensive, yeah. Because there are people like that. I mean, not really, but there are still. So just be ready. Now, number one is really, it's really a question that breaks down our concept, each other's concept of God. So, what are you, Lucy? What's number one? From the options below, what are your attitude towards the existence of God?
Say which one I think is correct.
Hmm.
Right? Don't you know?
Probably
One,
number
2,
2.
or 3. It's definitely one of the 3.
Yeah. Probably
There's
number
no right answer.
probably-
But you're wrong.
probably number 3. The existence of God is unknown or unknowable.
That
Anyway.
would be
Gnostics.
Yeah. So again, this question, we're getting a little personal with people. Okay. Don't get.
아니 잠깐만요. 근데
Yeah.
저는 모임을 내일 하는데 do I have to talk to them about colors while I know I'm going to ask this next week?
Yeah.
I
Just
know I'm gonna
yeah.
I'm like, oh, social media color.
Just bear with me, okay? Just bear with me. Yeah. Just bear with me.
That's escalation.
Now, right after this simple answer, you gotta ask what is the reason behind your belief, okay? Now, this is like there's no answer for this. It's still making suggestions and questions about what people think about God. And I think asking the reason more than number 1 to 3 is more important, because you gotta realize how because the concept about God, it depends on what they went through in lifetime. So and it includes relationship with their parents, their social status, everything involves in their ideas of God. So probably in this question, you can actually go deeper. There's a chance to go personal life, like So, for example, if someone said God doesn't exist, and they said, well, what's the reason behind your belief? And he just says, that's because that's true, But then you gotta still ask, is there a time where you realize that there's no God, or were you always a believer of atheism, like since you're young? Or, just ask a little more questions so they can actually think about reasons of their answers. Yeah? Okay. Can Lucy read us this paragraph?
Sure. The relationship between God and mankind can be compared to the relationship between a kindergartner and a university professor. A kindergartner cannot fully know or understand a professor. The only possible way a kindergartner could get to know the professor and have conversations is if the professor willingly lowers their standard to match the kindergartner. Likewise, humans cannot know God. They cannot know or understand God even with all the strength, heart, knowledge, or reasoning. However, when God comes down to us, this is when we can experience God or talk to Him.
Now, I think, according to your members, especially newcomers, I think it's good to make a comment that in the Bible, we say there is God. And we say He's knowable. So, knowable. You can know Him.
Him, knowable.
Knowable.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you said normal, and I was like,
So, yeah.
no.
So can you see number 3? Question number 1, 3, agnosticism. It says at the end, unknowable.
Mm-hmm.
Question 1, option 3. Take out un.
The UN.
Yeah, UN, knowable. So the Bible says, so it's more like a third person perspective. It's not like, hey, you're wrong. It's not like that, but we just give them, in the Bible, we believe that there is God, and He is a knowable God. That we can find out who He is through the Bible. Okay? And then we can explain through this analogy. Sorry, Eric. Sorry, my YouTube audio.
Oh my God.
Subscribe. Yeah, this university professor and kindergartner. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the next share is how we can just ask people whether they experience something that cannot be explained. Yep.
So, in the case of like newcomers, does that mean that they would share experiences where they're sure that God doesn't exist? Or do they discuss the possibility of God existing?
Yeah. That's more like it. Yeah.
So they have to kind of
So,
put down their
yeah,
value for
yeah.
that question.
So for example, if they're atheist, just ask them: is there any event that you think is a mysterious, mysterious or spiritual experience? Because even like people who do yoga and stuff, they believe in spirituality. And
I
stuff.
know too much.
Like meditation and all that. Okay. Now it's gonna get like messy from this point on, because let's read Romans chapter 1 verse 20. 20. Can we read it all together? Yeah, 3, 2, 1. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world, in the things that have been made, so they're without excuse. So at this chapter, we're pointing out two things. First is, there's a term, like a professional term, called general revelation. Okay, general revelation or natural revelation. Okay, just like the Bible says, we believe that God, even to the non-believers, God has made Himself known. So that probably not about Jesus, not about gospel, but probably there is some kind of being that is superior than us, that is higher than
And
us.
you think that's the definition for genuine revelation?
That's what it's about. Yeah.
So that's including
Art.
other religions.
Yeah. So we're not really talking about, because this verse it specifically talks about this world has a footprint of God. Okay, for example, when you can use a lot of analogy in this, but then for example, when you look at so you're in the everyone's got on the plane right before, on the airplane, yeah? When you look down, when you just look at the land, like from above, if you just look at a random stuff, like trees and all that, you wouldn't say it's designed, right? But then if you look at something that is like really straight, and you get to ask yourself, what is that? Kind of, like really straight. Do you get what I mean?
What do you mean really straight?
So from above, there's
Bird's
like,
eye view?
yeah. And there's like trees and mountains and houses and all that.
You don't see
But
the
then
detail.
when you're passing through, for example, like nature, clearly there's no one who lives in that, forest. But then among the forest, if you find a line that is like straight,
Like how the trees grow so straight.
no, something that's so straight,
Something that looks man-made.
that's like so straight that it can't be natural, that you get to think of, there must be something. This is a point where it makes you question, was there a design involved, like of a man, So when you look at nature, you can't just go, that's naturally made, like evolved. Because there's always something, you see a pattern, for example, in the nature, that it makes you think, there must be some kind of intelligence involved in this thing, Yeah. Does it make sense? Is it going nowhere?
That's what science things do.
Oh.
Yeah, so, I mean, even without this analogy, when you look at a sunset, sunshine, you go, beautiful. And you feel this, Grand Canyon, waves even, all this nature, you look at it, you go, wow, this is overwhelming. This is beautiful, That kind of sense gives you a sense of there must be some kind of higher being. Yeah. Because I went to Turkey from Poway, and like, if you're at Turkey, not in the city, but there's like a endless wilderness kind of thing, endless land. And that's like overwhelming. And you go, wow, if I lived here, and if I was a king in this area, I would actually call myself a god. That's how beautiful it was, how overwhelming it was. Yeah, so there is a mark of God within the nature. That's what this verse is about. Yeah? Now we're going to go more specific in that. Now,
Now it comes to creation.
yes. Number 2 says, the Bible tells us that God created the world. How did He create it? Here, we're not really asking questions. We're just asking whether they know verses in the Bible. Okay? Whether they agree or not. Okay? We're just asking. I mean, in newcomers' sense, we can just ask them, have you heard of God creating the world in the Bible? You know, do you know any verses? Have you heard of anything? You know, but then within the branches, probably you can just go biblical with it. Yeah.
So it's just like, it's actually right or wrong.
Yep.
Because like, what if they're like, on Monday He made the moon, and on Tuesday, you know how they say that?
Yeah.
On Wednesday,
Now,
Sunday, water.
there's a possibility somebody can raise a question, but is it really true kind of question? And tell them to keep it. Because we're going to talk about it later.
Keep it short.
Yeah, like, just bear with me kind of thing, okay? Because we're going to just talk about question 2. We're going to read the verses, okay? And then we're just going to straight number 3. Okay, this is a real deal. Okay, can we read the question together? Okay, ready, set, go. Do you remember the first time you were introduced to Darwin's theory of evolution? What are your thoughts on evolution and creationism? Okay, it's gonna get messy and
Wow,
messy.
I can talk about this for like 5 hours.
Okay, now
This is your job.
Yeah, it's my jam.
you need to keep it down. because this is where you need to actually get people to speak about what they think
Yeah.
and then understand you.
And then tell them
Okay.
they're wrong.
Okay, the purpose of this question is to relieve the views of evolution. If anyone's evolutionist among you, okay, among the members who came, the purpose is not to win the argument, but it's to make them kind of go, "Oh, I didn't know that." Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what we need to do. If they're like, if they're like, "Come on, God didn't create this, Big Bang and all that," they're like strong believer. Our point is not to make them like praise the Lord, but it's more like, "Oh, I didn't know
So
that."
it's to challenge
To
them.
challenge them and make them question in gentle way. Okay.
I'm not going to be gentle, just going to be real.
Facts.
You are wrong.
Now, if we read the paragraph straight after, you're gonna get into a massive argument because it says one of the most surprising facts in the history of education is that in all curriculum, evolution has been normalized to be taught as scientific fact without any factual evidence. This sentence will offend any evolutionist. Okay, so 여기 don't go there yet. In case
I am so ready.
don't go there yet. Okay. You know the thing I gave you? You need to read this. Okay?
Nice.
It's gonna help you so much. It's gonna help you so much. This is just one chapter, I reckon. Like,
Do we read from the very beginning or do we start from microevolution versus macro?
I think we should read the whole thing.
Because it's just a paragraph above, so I don't know if that's meant to be included or not.
oh, that's just.
Because that's from the last section, right?
Wait, I think that's like actually the beginning without the chapter title.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh wait, sorry. Just
From the
okay. So read from micro versus macro?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna explain this like briefly, okay?
Okay.
So write this down. Remember this. We gotta study this. Microevolution. Write it down. I mean, yeah, and macroevolution. Now, except for Tim, who knows about the evolutionists' argument? Who knows about it? Have you talked to anyone who believes in evolution? Like
My science teacher.
your science teacher?
Yeah.
What did they say? When you say, let's say for example, you had a conversation and you said, "Oh, God created the world," and they would like say no, right? How would they prove that evolution is right?
The evolving from monkey.
Yeah. How would yeah?
The skull.
Okay.
To show that.
Write it down. Skull. Okay. And what else?
What is it? The geographic locations and things like that.
Hmm.
Of animals.
Yeah, it's like the bird comes from here, and this animal also happens to come from here, so therefore they have to be connected and things like that.
How did that relate to evolution?
So they're saying that
Or
they
like
are from the
one
same
ancestor? Okay.
ancestor. Yeah.
Or who else? What else?
The Galapagos turtle,
What else?
that's like the main example.
Anything?
They tend to argue
No.
cells.
We're gonna go over now.
Everyone except you.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I think probably this is something you didn't really know about. And the thing is, I'm going to tell you about something that scientists already know. But they just don't want to admit.
Lose their job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Full seriousness.
I happened to meet up with this pastor who was once scientist.
The Korean.
Yeah.
Kim Song-yeon, Kim.
No. He's a immigration lawyer. Yeah. He's a pastor and he was once atheist. Now, I actually got to ask a lot of questions about this to him. Because this is written in the perspective, to actually argue that creation is wrong. No. Evolution is wrong. But then he actually knows a little more than him. So I actually asked about his idea. But then the whole point is this. What I realized after conversation with him was this. Whenever we're challenged with creation and science, that's not a right question even. Yeah. Because a lot of people tend to think that religion and science, it's clashing. But if you approach from this moment, then the whole conversation is going to go wrong. Because, okay, when you think of a science, you think that it's based on facts, right? Datas. Now, you're wrong. Okay? Science starts with hypothesis, which is assumption. So it's like article. For example, Big Bang, Seungni has done something wrong. Okay? For example, they saw a photo or something and they come up with a hypothesis, assumption. He must be related to these people. And then they start gathering data, right? And they go, with this data, they decide whether the hypothesis is right or wrong. So the starting point of science of these days is from assumption. That's what we need to know. Okay? So science is not really fact-based, but it's more like a philosophy-based. Do you get what I mean? Before it wasn't. Before Darwin, it wasn't. Until to the point where Darwin, science was going on and they loved science, but then they used the science as a tool to just discover the world. That's it. Now, what Darwin changed is that he started to put in his own philosophy. And that philosophy, that hypothesis is this. What if God doesn't exist? That's a starting point. Okay? That's what we need to know. What if God doesn't exist? And Darwin was just into his own thoughts to prove that God doesn't exist. That's a starting point. Now, I'm going to give you an example. For example, Rachel and Tim are going out, right? They're like couple. Now, what if I go, okay, what if Rachel doesn't love Tim? Okay? Now, I just want to, and I want to publish, and they're like really famous, like popular in the world, you know, like billboards. And I want to make an article that want to make people believe. And I start writing on Rachel, how she cheated. And I'll start gathering all these data and articles and photos. And I can actually make them believe to people, you know, think that Rachel doesn't love Tim. And I can actually manipulate Tim to believe that as well. So that's what's happening since the Darwin's days. Now, I'm going to get into a really specific data here. Okay. Now, microevolution is a theory that there could be small changes within same species. For example, human being, I'm going to go into bird, okay? Bird has small beaks, long beaks, you know, depends on environment and all that stuff. But then, just because the size of the beak goes longer and shorter, can it go into, thank you so much. Can that bird become monkey? Like jump the species?
Of course you can.
Can it?
Of course you
Can it?
Because equality.
Now, there's a lizard, okay? Or let's say lizard or dogs, you know, dog. And this dog wants to fly. Can there be jump from dog to a bird?
Equality.
Evolutionists say yes. Why?
Natural selection.
What is natural selection?
You would die if you were to naturally.
What is natural selection is this?
The alleles and the dominant genes and the ones that are more adaptive to the environment.
So for example, we're like all human, but I'm like weak, right?
Yeah.
Me and Tim, we're like weak.
This guy's actually.
Yeah. Like Rachel, Lucy, like they're so strong, you know,
Yeah.
so healthy.
Alpha.
Now that means when a disease comes,
You'll be wiped out.
we'll wiped out, they will survive. And evolutionist point of view, that means evolving. Do you know what I mean? Upgrade in their bodies. And probably according to evolutionists, human beings can be evolved into another level of human beings. That's what they think. That's what they say. Now, this is what they say when they talk about a dog going into a bird. For example, there's 1,000 dogs, and they all fall off the cliff. Probably this wild animal like lion, they come after dogs, and lions are like threatened. And one of the dog,
Can fly.
so desperate and so strong and better than other dogs, somehow like freaking swings and managed to stay in the air a little. And this is like a wow upgrade. Probably after like 1,000 years of trying, they can finally fly. That's what scientists say. Now, okay. I mean, I don't know. My point of view, this is funny.
It's really funny.
But then the thing is this. They actually have a point because of this. Apparently, if you read this, there's an example. For example, there's a bacteria. when you give a hardship on bacteria, like thousands of bacteria, there are few bacteria that survives that hardships, that virus. Okay. Now, scientists base their theory on this, saying, imagine millions of years passes, how this will evolve into another being, because they evolved. But then, from being a bacteria to become another better bacteria, this is micro evolution. Okay, micro, which means small changes. For example, from being me to Rachel, human to human, micro, okay, small change
Within the same
species. Now, it doesn't mean you can't relate this and say just because human beings can become a better human, it doesn't mean human beings will become another species. Do you get what I mean? Dogs will be always dogs. Chicken will be always chicken. But then dogs can never be birds or monkeys. You know? Now the thing is this. Most of uni students, like let's say first years, who goes to uni and who believes in this, like evolution, they don't really define these two words. They just broadly see it as evolution. Okay? Because a lot of people will say, oh, but isn't that evolution still? Still evolution? Can you just say, why not? Why can't you be another species? Okay. Now the funny thing is this: if you go to the next page,
The next page is in 141.
I'm at 143. 143. Okay. The thing is this: when scientists do an experiment with like mouse or bacteria, all that, you gotta know this. You gotta know. All right, this is bacteria. Look at me. They're bacteria, right? I'm the human scientist, and I intentionally give them a hardship disease. Now, this isn't natural. Do you get what I mean? Because intelligent being, I'm not intelligent, but a thinking person with a purpose, intentionally giving something so that they can go into direction. Do you get what I mean? But then what the natural selection means is this. There's no intelligence, just natural coincidence happening, but somewhat they become a better thing. Now, this is a jump from intelligent being cooking something into a wind blowing and trees and all the fruits coming into a smoothie. Right? Does anyone follow? Is everyone follow? If you don't understand, just ask me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because we need to see the difference between because I'm talking about this flaw in their argument. Because what scientists say is this: the natural, because they think there's no intelligent intervening in this. It's just natural thing. Okay, water flows, rain comes, whatever. Just a natural. Yeah, scientists say just a natural accident will make an animal, a dog, into a better animal. Okay? Now, you look at these articles about monkeys, like chimpanzees, which is the smartest monkey, how they can actually distinct between signs,
They can go to space.
Yeah. Now, still, you would say, wow, look, chimpanzees, they can evolve, right? They can think like human, almost. But then, you gotta know, it was human being
You taught
purposely made them to learn it. This is not natural, right? This is intelligent being actually getting involved. So this is not natural selection at all. There's a difference between making Lego. Even my son can make Legos, and there's this, and he actually built something. And you put a bunch of Legos in a bag and shake it, and something like a plane comes in. That doesn't make sense. Okay?
Magic trick.
Yeah.
That's natural selection.
Now, what actually happens when there is no intelligent being trying to upgrade a being? There are still changes in DNAs. Okay. Now, interesting thing is this. When there's no intelligent being involved, it's most likely they downgrade. They don't really evolve, but they go downgrade. For example, one of the legs are short. Now you gotta know, because Richard Dawkins, he's like the god of atheists. Okay, he's like, and he says stuff like this. He actually made a program. He put in, how DNAs, they have like letters,
Yeah, the age.
and with combination of these letters, it decides what color we are, how much height and all that. Yeah, and this guy actually made a program that he put in this combination of letters, and he run the programs, and they're actually, because according to letters, the shape is made.
Yeah.
Now, it'll just go like random shape. But then once in a million, there's actually a shape that looks like a butterfly or something. And Richard Dawkins goes, see? By chance, a shape finally is made. Now, that's a picture we're talking about. When you have to apply to a living thing, right, I'm going to talk about, okay, there's a car, Subaru. Now, there are parts, right? What happens when one of the parts in the engine changes its shape? What happens?
You get a super engine that suddenly upgrades.
Does it even run?
No, not really.
It doesn't. All right, I'm going to make it easier for you. You're a designer, right?
No, not really.
Okay.
Okay.
Wrong analogy.
I did study like so, yeah.
Yeah? Oh. You did Excel. Right?
Yeah. Let's do the design.
Design.
Yeah.
Because I can't really think of a good one. Oh. Okay. Can you just... right. There's the design, right? Even with a t-shirt, a slight change here. No, this is not enough. Good enough. Okay, I'm just going with. Phone. This is a perfect analogy. There's a phone, right? Have you opened the phone? Have you seen what's inside?
Only I have. This is my job.
Have you opened what's inside? Like, have you seen it?
Oh, no.
Have you seen it?
Just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if there's one slight damage with one part? Does the phone work?
Maybe.
It may be, but if that is like engine of the phone, it won't.
Like the battery.
Yeah. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Within the watch, okay, the third analogy, watch, you know how there's like a lot of, what do you call this?
Cogs.
What?
Cogs. Gears.
Gears, cogs. They go hand in hand. When one of them is changed in shape, nothing works, right? With a living thing, because for a living thing to walk and breathe, you need trillion parts to work together in certain way. Can you imagine this? For example, like we're holding hands, and we gotta do this group pyramid or something. Like we gotta 그런 거 있잖아요. 이렇게 한 명이 이렇게 눕고, someone lies on one's lap and the other lap and each other's lap, and they manage to all support each other and sit. Okay, if one person just leaves, snakes, then everybody collapses, right?
That would be you.
That's life. That's us. So for a human or for a dog to even breathe and heart pumping, there has to be trillion cells working in certain order. For example, a dog was born and one of the cell is mutated. It evolved in a different way. Then the whole thing goes down.
It's called cancer.
Yeah, that's called cancer.
So can I suggest, can we give our body as an example? Because like one thing, like one disease somewhere that starts, it will spread into.
Yeah,
that-
so
yeah.
The good example, there's two good examples that I know of. First one is cancer. Your cells are meant to reproduce regularly according to how they're designed, but if they don't follow that law and keep reproducing, that becomes cancer or it becomes tumor.
Yeah.
The second example is in your cells you have 36 chromosomes, and then is it when you have one
Down
extra?
syndrome.
Yeah, when you have one extra chromosome out of your cell, you get Down syndrome. And you don't live long, your intelligence isn't as good, you're physically weaker.
So, in the saying that, do you mean by function, as in like function like perfectly?
No. Breathe. Just living being.
Then his Down syndrome example doesn't work. Because Down syndrome people.
No, so
with
that-
Down syndrome eventually
You don't
has
live long.
accidents to die
Yeah.
soon.
People with your
Yeah.
lifespan is short in
Yeah.
general, and you can't function as much as a normal person can. And
Yeah, I mean,
there's
yeah,
never
but-
there's never an example where you become superior.
Oh, so that's your point.
Yeah, you never become a
Those
better
too many
being.
words to me.
You never become Spider-Man. If you get bit by a spider, you either die or you get a disease. You never become Spider-Man.
So can we give our human body as an example instead of using foreign or like other things?
Yeah. Choose whatever
We're
you
talking
want.
about biology, so I guess the body's a better example.
Yeah. Now, if you read the conversation here, it's kind of really funny. But then this actual record of transcript of a TV show that was broadcasted. Now, can we, let's, all right. There's an MC, there's a Christian, this guy who wrote the book, and there's other guy who's atheist, okay? Now, the guy said, believing that life came by chance is like believing that a Boeing 747 airplane, there, on the right, resulted from a tornado going through a junkyard. Yeah? The first. Yeah. You have to have a lot of faith to believe that. So even like a tornado goes through a junkyard, and suddenly there is a plane that you can ride on. Yeah? That's what an atheist said about evolution. And this guy's just quoting that. Yeah? Just paraphrasing it. Well, and this guy, Kurt, who is atheist and evolutionist, he says, well, the Boeing 747 evolved. We can go back to the Wright brothers and see the first kind of airplane they created. Do you get what he's saying? He's not getting the point. He's saying evolve. He's just trying to make a point that everything got better at some point. Yeah? Without thinking that it was intelligent being that actually made it. So the point I want to make here is this. All the arguments that evolutionists come up with, all the cases they talk about, it all has to involve intelligent being with a purpose and direction. I mean, if you read this, you will have better understanding. I'm just summing it up. If you read number 3 in page 144 to 145, that will explain what I talked about, the car, you know. Okay. You know, yeah, let's get going first. The skull. The thing about the skull comes in page 153, but then it just talks about really briefly how. Because the thing is, when they show out the skulls, it's not really a proof that it actually evolved.
It might be just different
Yeah,
species.
and they never show it. They never show the links between. If you go back to your textbook in the science class, the fossils they come up with, they don't really have anything in between. For example, there's this dinosaur with wings, and there's a dinosaur, and there's this duck thing. What do you call it?
The duck, the Australian animal.
The korak,
Platypus?
the
Platypus.
platypus. Because platypus is one of. Because people come up with platypus. Look at platypus. You know, look at frogs. Because
The amphibious.
yeah. That's like but frogs are frogs, okay? Just that's it. And people say chicken can fly,
Yeah.
but chickens are chicken. That's it. They're just non-flying birds. Yeah.
Don't they also argue something about like the embryo, how all the embryos look the same?
Oh yeah.
That's one of the evolution like proofs as well.
Like the cell.
Oh,
You know the fetus before
임신하면
yeah,
when you're
it
pregnant,
looks like an alien.
cell, and then they look like
They all look the same.
올챙이 같이.
Yeah, every
embryo.
looks the same. Like what's
Cell
Um,
and like pigs, they're all quite similar.
I think that's
Now-
isn't that a self-design?
Now the thing is, what he talks about is this. Those stuff, for example, if you look at all the creatures like animals and stuff, we all have similar DNAs. Okay? Now he makes 2 points. First, we're living on Earth. And because we're living on Earth in the same circumstances, environments, that has to have, certain stuff, for example, in the fish tank, if you look at all the fish, you're designed to live in that water, right? The second point is that because of similarities, it can be interpreted in 2 ways. First is, yes, just like evolutionists say, probably you have same ancestry. Second, it can also mean you have same creator. Yeah.
What was first?
Well, first, as evolutionists say, yes, you're from amoeba, same ancestral origin. Second, it could mean same creator. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Now,
That's a mic drop moment.
now the thing is this. I talked to the pastor I met, and I'll tell you what he said. Because he's not reading here. He said that scientists now, it's been quite a while that all scientists rejected Darwinism. That we all came from this one cell. It's just rejected few decades ago. I mean, what's decade?
10 years.
Yeah, a few decades ago. It's rejected.
What's decade?
I thought it was like centuries. Now,
As in evolve.
yeah, evolve. So all science say there is evolution because they don't want to believe creationism. Because all science start from if there's no God. That's their starting point. So they can never go, oh, there's God without, Jesus.
You can't be a Christian scientist.
You can. When you no, because I'm talking about these modern scientists where they start from the assumption that there's no God. But if you're just talking about facts and data, you're still scientist. They can actually prove there's God. Yeah. But get back to where we were.
I see.
This is really ridiculous. So you might be like, huh? It does make sense because, okay, scientists concluded that you cannot change into a species, another species, for example, dog to bird, through small changes. But you have to have big change.
Sorry, say that again.
So, did you know this? Scientists, okay, this is dog,
Okay.
bird,
Okay.
evolve, right? Darwinism, they believe that through millions of years, small changes in DNAs like that.
Yeah.
Now, because they found DNAs and all the how complicated a cell is, because Darwin himself said, if cell is complicated enough, I will reject my theory. That's what he said. But then back in Darwin's day, they didn't have technology to look into cell. So it just passed. But then later on, they looked into cell and they were like, this is actually more complicated than the whole library in the world. Okay, that's what they said. So it was rejected. So what they came up with is, okay, probably there was no small changes, but there was a sudden change. Like today dog, tomorrow bird. Like sudden change. Like for example, probably not just a bird, but like wings, like suddenly. That's what they believe right now. Okay?
It's less convincing than Darwinism.
Yeah, it's less convincing, but it's somehow more convincing. Because based on this is really interesting because it kind of makes sense. Can you go to page 150?
150.
150. There are two sentences, right?
Yes.
It says, Charles Darwin was a scientific god. The second line goes, Charles Darwin was a scientific dog. They have exact same spells, right? Alphabets. But then they have completely opposite, like different meaning. So what they say is that because one change of DNA mutation, it doesn't just mean small change, but it can actually change the whole thing. Probably that's what happened. Okay?
And the example of that is Down syndrome.
Yeah. But still, it doesn't really upgrade you.
Spiral.
Now, so right now, scientists actually have to believe in miracle. Scientific miracle though. Okay? And here I want to make a point that science is actually a faith. Okay? Now, because of this, because you know how okay, I'll talk about it later. Now, about the universe. You know how Big Bang Theory, that there was an explosion of a small thing, and it's it's like boom, and everything just popped. Now, if you think about it, that's also not a small change, but a big change, like all of a sudden. Now, that was actually not supported by scientists until they found an evidence in the universe, because Einstein said there was no beginning in universe. Because, you know, for example, this is argument of, this is what science believe. Science believe they don't really go with the reality. For example, if the sun rise today and set, it's gonna always rise and set. And it must have been doing that millions of years. That's what science think. Because of the equation. Because of the math equation, it has to be like that. Nothing changes. That's what science believe. Now, non-scientists don't necessarily, they don't necessarily think that, because why not? It can change, That's what the philosophers did. Because philosophers, they're not scientists. They ask questions why, Why does sun has to go up every day,
It doesn't have to.
Yeah, probably there was a beginning. And scientists were like, no, there was no beginning. Because if they say, yes, there was a beginning, they have to say there was a God. Okay? So Einstein actually said there was no such as beginning in universe.
Right.
Because if you think about it, does it have to have beginning? No. Why does it have to beginning? There's no reason, right? So Einstein actually claimed universe has been always universe. Okay? Just like we say how God was always God, Now, Einstein was rejected because they found something in the universe that proved there was a Big Bang. There was a starting point. So what I'm making point is this. In the history of science, they have been contradicting themselves.
That's what science is. It's
Yeah.
disproving
Yeah.
one theory, and that's why there's no evidence.
So what I want to make a point today on science is this. If you are thinking, first, science is based on facts and data, not really. Okay? Not really. Number two, if you think that scientists always claim to be true, not really. If you talk to scientists, they will say, we still doubt ourselves. They will say that. They're not
Good scientists.
Yeah, good science, good science. Those who are really educated. The pastor told me that if you're uni students, they will say science is true. But if you're a professor, if you're really, someone who's authoritative in the world, then they will say science is not true, They will say that. Third is this. Because science is not truth, you shouldn't just go against or for science. It has to be a tool to test something. Yeah. The reason why Christians always start debating with scientists is that because in our mind, in Christians' mind, we think that, they're they're not going to change. They're so stubborn. But in fact, there are scientists who's willing to listen. Okay. So, what's the conclusion? There's no conclusion. We're going to just leave it like that.
Okay, nice.
Okay?
Just with the philosophers, you how
Yep.
they said, but why is this a sunrise? What was their connection to God again?
Because in ancient days, the philosophers came up with an idea that if I push this moves, right? So the wind blows, something causes wind to blow, air to move. So if you trace that, something moves, there must be some being or something that is not moved, but that started something. So philosophers always ask the question, what's the beginning?
They always ask for the chain of events.
Yeah. What's the beginning? Where is the origin? That's what they think about. So you know how philosophers always ask, what's life and all that? Like, when you're in puberty, they ask like, that's because they wonder about the beginning of their life, their being. Yeah. So who am I?
Which is still bad because scientists are all about chance and philosophers are all about cause, but neither of them connect back to God because they assume that God isn't the beginning. So both approach is like, the conclusion is nothing because it doesn't relate back.
Yeah. So actually, relation between philosophy and science is worse than religion and science. Yeah, because Stephen Hawking, the disabled person who's like genius, he actually isn't
It's
it?
a funny description.
Yeah, is it?
It's facts.
But it's facts though.
No, but you could have said like some philosopher or like some guy who wrote this book, but here like
Stephen
disabled
Hawking.
Yeah.
But most of people just think that he's disabled. Then. Anyway. No.
So racist.
Anyway.
I'm on YouTube,
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna get so much antis. Okay. I'm gonna get so much antis. Okay. Now,
Uploading these on YouTube.
what he said was, philosophy is not true. He just starts off with that. You shouldn't ask about the origin. So, those famous scientists, they just go against philosophy. Yeah. So, science, philosophy, religion, probably they're all talking about different things and they all fight each other. But you gotta realize here that neither science or philosophy has answers yet. Now, the Bible should not be approached from scientific perspective or philosophical perspective. Does this make sense? Because most of us has our background in science or philosophy because the way we are educated, like raised. Now, what is the Bible then? What is creation? How did we know creation? Because God told us. That's it. That's it. That's probably, you can find an evidence. You can just try to find it, but beginning, how did people know that this is created? Because God told them. End of sentence.
Should we say that in
Yeah.
the beginning?
Yeah. I mean,
Like for me.
okay, I will just explain it. This is called the special revelation. Yeah. You can't just find out stuff, but God has to tell you. Yeah. There's just explain like there are things that God has to tell you for you to know. Okay. Now, from question 3 to 4, we need to go really smooth. Okay, how smooth? Question 3, you just put stuff out there and make them to go, oh, And then question 4, you go, what does Bible say? God said, you're creating God's image, like boom. You just go. We don't just sit on creation and theory, all that. We go straight into you're made in the image of God, like personal. You're valued. You're worthy. Just straight in. Yeah. Genesis. Okay, we have a passage. Genesis chapter 1, 27 to 28. Let's read it all together. 3, 2, 1. So
Then the
God
Lord
created
mankind
mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth, subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. And really interesting, this book goes into all of a sudden psychology. Okay?
I really like this book.
Yeah. Look at this. Oh, this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at this. Research shows that we act based on what we think about ourselves. 갑자기 사이언스 얘기하다가 갑자기 guys, it's important how you think about yourself because you're worthy. 갑자기 이렇게 웜하게 그러니까 되게 스무드하게 들어가야 돼요. 알겠죠? Don't hesitate. Just go straight in. Tell them you're made in. The Bible says we're made in image of God. And that means we can find our worthiness from God. Okay? And I'm going to send you what image of God means, okay? What it stands. Through the Facebook message. Okay, it's really late, so I'll let you go. Cool. Any questions?
How long should we leave the group for per session?
I'd say 1.5 hours. I mean, max.
With the newcomers?
Yeah, max. Like
Service and
no. Like for example, if they get fired up with this topic,
then carry on.
then they want to speak, right? Let them speak, and I think that will actually take longer because they get interested in it.
Because it's quite deep.
Yeah. But
It's ideal if they are interested.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
If they're not interested,
that's harder.
40 minutes, just tell them there are things like this, and this is what they say, this is what the Bible says, and just go lightly with the newcomers. Yeah.
Is this next week?
Next week.
Next.
Not
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Not tomorrow, yeah.
What if there's newcomers?
Then we don't do it.
Okay. So we just wait till the first.
You gotta grind your sharpness.
Yes.
And then when they come, science.
Because I want to study about this.
It's good. And you can find this in Korean too. I'm pretty sure. So should be if you have the book.
But not as this precise, like
It's hard either way.
Because Darwinism really isn't. It's not really communicated that well in Korea. Like the whole theory of evolution in itself in Korea is very
Because they just
Koreans aren't
want
very
you to
interested in
believe that we evolved.
kind of. It's funny how I used to question like creation when I was in high school, like when I was young, and now that I think about it, like, wow, I must have like failed the HSC or something.
okay, let's pray. Any other questions?
Yeah, I used to say to like people who believe in evolution that like if we walk from a monkey